How realistic is it to make a living on streaming alone? One of the most important topics, obviously, is the revenue.
For another year, Spotify set the record for the highest annual payment, $9 billion. It was over $9 billion. Half of the revenue paid out was accounted for by independent artists and labels, which is huge. A distributor might take similar action. They might take the track down. They might suspend your account. We as a company have the right to remove any manipulated content, any songs, tracks with artificial streaming from the platform. We're not expecting you to list all the promo opportunities you've got coming up. Like, it might be your first track, and that it doesn't matter. It's about the music.
Today, my special guest is Bryan Johnson, who is Spotify's global head of artist and industry partnerships. We talked about streaming royalties, how independent artists can generate more revenue. We also talked about bots and why you should avoid them. It was a great interview, so without further ado, let's cut to my interview with Bryan Johnson from Spotify. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm so excited to have a special guest today. It's Bryan Johnson, head of artist and industry partnerships from Spotify. We're so lucky to hear his voice directly as a Spotify representative, and he's also a musical artist, producer, and creative person. And so we're going to hear his exclusive insight on all things happening in the streaming world and a lot of things that Spotify is planning this year. So thanks so much, Bryan, for your time today. I'm so excited to have this interview with you.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be joining you. I'm a fan of your channel, by the way.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah, it's good. One of the great things about this day and age is just so much more opportunity for advice direct from artists to artists. I think, yeah, you're doing a good job.
One of the most important topics regarding streaming and royalties, obviously, is the revenue that artists can earn from this relatively new platform, right? This relatively new type of music consumption. Can you shed some more light on exactly what's happening with Spotify royalties, how they're getting paid out, just so independent artists can have the inside picture?
Yeah, so we've just launched our Loud and Clear report, our annual economics report, really to give more clarity, more transparency about how the streaming economy works, where Spotify fits in, how Spotify fits in, how royalties work, and much, much more. It's very much an educational resource. And the single biggest thing that stands out in Loud and Clear this year is how more and more artists are finding success and building careers through streaming. And the makeup of who's actually generating that money today has shifted. It's more indie than ever. It's way more global than ever. And if you'd like, I can take you through some of those numbers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We want the numbers, definitely.
Yeah. So for another year, Spotify set the record for the highest annual payment to the music industry from any single retailer, $9 billion. It was over $9 billion. So we're going to start with the big figure and then bring it down. That figure has nearly tripled over the past 6 years, and it represents a big part of the $40 billion Spotify has paid out since it started. Now, I just want to talk about that as a foundational thing to base everything else on. But now it's important to look at, what does that actually mean on an artist level? That they're 9 billion, 48 billion, the huge figures. What does it actually mean on an artist level? When we dig into the Loud and Clear data this year, we can see that the number of artists generating at least $10,000, $100,000, $1 million have all nearly tripled since 2017. And that money isn't just going to those at the top. We can see that Spotify royalties are powering artists' careers at all stages. And this is something we show on Loud and Clear over the years. This is the 4th year we've done it. And what we'd like to show is the progression over time, the different thresholds of artists. Now, streaming, it's driving the whole industry to be bigger. And for the indie sector, for the first year ever in 2023, half of the revenue paid out to the music industry was accounted for by independent artists and labels, which is huge. And that's a 4 times increase of what indies generated on Spotify from 2017. Just another indicator of the massive, massive shift the industry has seen as a result of streaming. Now, where this is interesting for independent artists and many of your viewers on this channel, independent artists will typically have label deals that would give them a favorable or good share of the revenue they generate. And those that don't have those traditional indie deals, the DIY sector, the ones who are maybe going through distributors, aggregators, they're typically paying a very small fee and taking home the rest. So what does all this mean? Well, I boil it down to this being a very empowering time for the artist community, because now there are just so many different options for how to release music, choices on how to build a career. Each has their own benefits, services, gives and takes. There's independent deals, there's major deals, there's distributor way forward. It's down to the artist. There's different choices, there's different ways of doing it. Now, one of my favorite highlights and insights from this year, from Loud and Clear this year, is about the growth of non-English speaking performers. Of the 66,000 artists who generated over $10,000 on Spotify alone in 2023, more than half are from countries where English is not the first language. Let's break that down. Let's look at what that actually means.
Yeah.
We know it's quite established at this point that streaming brought down barriers to entry for creation and distribution. We know that K-pop is very much finding an audience all around the world. We know that Latin music is everywhere. We know that Afrobeats is traveling. It's on the move. But we're finally seeing all of that come to fruition now, and the numbers have shifted, and the money is going in that direction also. And this is something we show as one of the key takeaways on Loud and Clear. The thing with Loud and Clear as a site, we want to make it as digestible as possible. So at the front of the site, you can see 10 key takeaways. The indie stats I just mentioned, and that information is one, and this non-English point is another. We're seeing Spanish, German, Portuguese, French, Korean all lead the pack for performance in languages other than English. And Hindi, Indonesian, Punjabi, Tamil, and Greek all saw huge upticks in 2023 as well. Another point we raise on Loud and Clear this year, just thinking about broadening for me, this is broadening the gateway for the artist community. How do we ensure that it's as open as possible for a diverse set of artists to come through, no matter how they choose to release music, no matter where in the world they are? Now, when you think about the sort of artists who are making big amounts of money, I think it's logical to think about those that have a song that has gone viral, maybe those at the top of the charts, those who are nominated for Grammys, or here in the UK, the Brit Awards, those who are getting smashed on the radio, getting hammered on radio, getting loads of airplay, or featured on some of the top playlists around on Spotify. That's who may come to mind. But there are actually over 1,000 artists that generated over 1 million on Spotify last year who didn't have a single song chart on Spotify's global top 50. Now, I wish you could see the list of artists clearing that 1 million. They're not names you may expect. They're not household names, but it just shows the opportunity and that broadened entry point to releasing and distributing music and finding an audience. Just some interesting information in case you're wondering. If you want to know what an artist requires to generate 1 million in a year, and by the way, across Loud and Clear, when we talk about the figures, we talk in US dollars. So for an artist to generate $1 million in a year, as a rule of thumb, artists start approaching 1 million per year with around 4 to 5 million monthly listeners, or 20 to 25 million monthly streams.
That's awesome. That is, well, first of all, the fact that Spotify takes their data, synthesizes it into a report that's public for musicians and other industry professionals to just read and to digest is a huge gift. And to my knowledge, I don't think any other streaming platform does this. I mean, no, yeah. It must take a lot of workforce power to do this. So thanks to the Spotify team, thanks to you for putting this report together.
Something that I wanted to highlight.
Yeah.
I think it's been an incredible time over the past few years for artists to have a platform and a voice in this particular area, and actually have a voice that's listened to by the industry. Mm. We've seen many more artists speak out about compensation, how streaming works, what it all means to them, what it means going forward. And I think there's more education now. I think, channels like yourself, your channel, I think artists are more hungry for this information. I think there's more places to find it. People are asking smart questions. And Loud and Clear is Spotify coming to the table to join that discussion, to have a constructive conversation, and to give the information from our side. I think we might be the only service that do it. We would love other services to join as well. I think that's going to give a more of an overarching view on what the streaming economy is, rather than one DSP doing it. But we certainly hope we encourage others to do it.
So this is the question I'm sure a lot of viewers are asking, right? It's like that's amazing for them, amazing for those artists. But a lot of independent artists are sitting in a place where maybe they're not making the streaming revenue that they want. Maybe they don't understand how to get that attention on their catalog. My question for you is like, how realistic is it actually to make a living on streaming alone? Are these artists doing anything special to hit these high streaming revenues, high streaming numbers? Or are they truly just operating with the same tools, the same internet, the same social media as everyone else? Like, is it possible for someone watching this right now to have that same success? Or is there some kind of secret? Is there some kind of like cheat code that they have that is not accessible to everyone else? I just want to ask that specific question. Like, is it possible for anyone?
Yeah, it's a great question. When we dig into the data on Loud and Clear, we can see that the number of artists generating at least 10,000, 100,000, a million, so all different stages. Those figures have nearly tripled since 2017. So Spotify royalties are powering artists' careers at all stages. The industry is growing. Spotify is paying out more and more year on year. And it's important to remember that last year it was reported that Spotify was around 20% of recorded revenue. So, as I just mentioned, you can multiply Spotify revenues on Loud and Clear by at least four to estimate what an artist might be generating across recorded revenue sources. You can multiply it by five, but we say four just to be a bit more conservative. Now, of course, there are many other income streams that contribute towards an artist's day-to-day business, so merchandise, playing shows. So I believe most artists would approach their career in a broader sense and take advantage of the various opportunities in front of them. But where streaming is concerned, and Spotify in particular, we know the positive impact Spotify can have. And it's our job, it's our responsibility to continue developing those tools, features, resources, educational guides for the artist community to help them find, develop their audience, and monetize it as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And another stat, this is actually from 2022. It's slide 10 in Loud and Clear. But it says nearly 3,000 catalog heavy artists generated more than $100,000 on Spotify alone, right? Because obviously, if you have like two singles out, you're not going to have as many royalties as having maybe two albums out or three or four albums out, right? So putting the work in your catalog, taking the time to release multiple albums is definitely going to impact your streaming royalty. Is that what that stat says? Just so artists can understand.
Yeah, so this stat was released as part of Loud and Clear last year.
Mm,
And it's very much focused on those heritage artists. And it says there are nearly 3,000 heritage artists on Spotify,
mhm.
those with over 80% of their streams coming from tracks over 5 years old.
Oh,
And
wow. Yeah.
those heritage artists are generating significant passive income on their catalogs. Now, while in the CD era, the bulk of revenues were generated during release week, so it was very much about week one or maybe like month one or first few months if it was like a big release. Streaming has very much changed the earning lifespan of music, and the music you have out, the singles, the EPs, the albums, they can come to light at various points in a career, and some very extreme examples of this we've seen TV syncs be highly effective over the past couple of years. Obviously, we've seen the Kate Bush song, Running Up That Hill. We saw
Yeah.
Sophie Baxter recently have a similar trajectory with her track Murder on the Dance Floor. And these moments on cultural moments, it could be a TV thing, it could be something else, but it has a impact into Spotify. Spotify reflects what's happening in culture. It comes in, the tracks are there, the listener, the fan searches for the track, goes in, likes the track, saves it to the collection, and it goes from there. But the tracks being available, the catalog being there, it's incredible. And I always say new music is music that's unheard. It's not necessarily something that's just been released. It's music that I haven't heard before. So if a track's 20, 30, 40 years old and I've never heard it, it's new music. So all
Mhm.
music has a right to be discovered in that way.
Absolutely. TikTok and Instagram Reels, like the trends that happen on social media can also power a lot of streams from a legacy artist, a back catalog. We saw that with Fleetwood Mac as well. with the TikTok trend just, absolutely exploding streams. And it's almost like the new sync licensing, like mini syncs every single day across social media. Okay, so I wanted to ask you a question just on marketing, right? We talked a lot about data, we talked a lot about the revenue and the numbers of
Yeah.
what happened. But now looking forward into this year, I'm sure a lot of artists want to make it happen for them, right? A lot of artists want to grow their Spotify listenership from where it is now. I want to ask you, what should an artist do to get from wherever they are now? How can they best grow their Spotify listenership starting this year? What's your recommendation as a creative person yourself?
I always say don't ignore the basics. So you upload music, you have your Spotify artist profile, which is very much your canvas. And I don't mean canvas for visual expression. So I mean, it's a slate. It's a place that you can build upon and show your creativity and show the audience what you want to portray. Your music lives there. You can tell people about who you are or what you represent as an artist through your bio. You can link back to your socials on it. One of the hardest things I think in 2024 as an artist, having so many things to juggle. So we want to try and create signposts. So the option to redirect people to socials is one of those signposts. Mm-hmm. Now the artist page, you can show visuals on there. What's the photo that represents who you are? It could be a classic artist photo, it could be a classic band photo against a wall, right? Or it could be some more ethereal image that really represents a particular track or your music. It's totally down to you. This is your place. We have those visual expression tools for the songs, for the tracks. So Canvas, we have clips. These are all things that can give the listener, potential fan, more context, more color about what about your music. Mm-hmm. And we just mentioned catalog. Great opportunity to resurface an older track. It doesn't have to be a track from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It can be a track from a couple of years ago or last year, 6 months ago, that suddenly just got resurfaced somehow. It could have spanned through from socials. Maybe it's a popular track that's working live, but maybe you want to add some more context to that particular track. You've got Canvas there to dig out some footage. Maybe you got footage from the studio when you're recording it, or footage from the rehearsal room, or something on the tour bus around that time. So there's an option to use those tools as a way to remarket, market new material, but also remarket older material. Your artist page is a place where you can create engagement. You can sell tickets on there. You can sell merchandise. So that can be clothing through to physical, so CDs, vinyl. And the idea is to make the artist page as sticky as possible. You ideally want someone to land on it, listen to the music, gain an understanding as to who you are and what you are, and again, on your terms. You can follow trends if you want to follow trends, but there's not one way to do this. Every artist is individual, and you should do put on the page what represents you. So you've got music, ticketing, merchandise, visuals. We have a playlist pitch tool in Spotify for Artists. Spotify for Artists is the place that you should know. If you know 3 words about Spotify, it's Spotify for Artists. It's where you can take creative control over your profile. It's where you can access the audience development tools, the marketing tools, and it's where you can see all your data as well. Now, in terms of the tools, we have some great tools to help you identify and target listeners, fans. We've got Marquee, we've got Discovery Mode, we've got Showcase. Some of them have been rolled out across more markets than others. The way we work at Spotify, we launch things, test them for a while. Localization is a key thing for us. So we want to make sure that the products, the tools are localized in individual markets as well. But you're going to see these tools rolled out further afield. More and more artists can tap into them through Spotify for Artists, and very much get their music in front of their fans. And that's not restricted to the fans or potential fans in their own city or their own country. We're talking across 184 markets here. So huge potential. But I led this answer by saying start with the basics or don't ignore the basics, because that's the foundation. That's the kind of the concrete for everything else. That's what you want to get right. Yeah. The next stage, of course, is how do you get someone to come on your page, click save, and that's the thing. You want someone to
Yeah.
save the track to their own collections and listen. You want someone to follow you on Spotify. The more followers you have, the more chances of being in across release radar and those personalized playlists you have. So those things are super important, and figure out your social strategy across other platforms. What's your call to action? What you're encouraging people to do? How are you incentivizing people to go to your page? There's quite a lot there.
Yeah.
We have quite a few guides on Spotify for artists to help people understand this. We don't expect everyone to just wake up knowing this. So I would encourage people to go to Spotify for Artists, check out the videos, check out the guides, check out the blog pieces. There's a lot of tips on there from people who work at Spotify, including myself, but also industry experts as well.
That's great. So when it comes to editorial playlists, Spotify has a team that accepts submissions, but a lot of artists don't know what happens after they hit submit. So can you talk a little bit more about how editorials work, how an artist can submit and get their music in an editorial playlist, and just shedding some light on the behind the scenes process?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have a free tool in Spotify for Artists, which is a playlist pitch tool. So the artist or someone on the artist team can come on, tell us about that track, so an upcoming track that hasn't been released before. And what do we want to know? We want to know what the song's about. We want to know the instruments. There's a tagging system where you can tell us what instruments were on the track, the genres, all the information that you think is going to be relevant around that particular track. Now, if you're I think this is worth mentioning, if you're a brand new artist, we're not expecting you to list all the promo opportunities you've got coming up, like I'm on this TV show, I'm on this radio show, because it might be your first track, and that it doesn't matter. It's about the music. If you've got relevant context about the song's performance, or if you are further down the line and you are in that position where you're touring or you're playing TV shows, that's your context, because you're a bit further down the line. But give us the most relevant context to you as an artist. When you press send, it doesn't just go into the abyss. I know what it's like when you sit on a laptop or phone and you're filling in forms all day for personal or professional reasons, and you think, does anyone actually read this stuff? We do. We read and we listen. Our editorial team, based all around the world, they are working individually, listening to these tracks all day, submitted through the pitch tool. They are based in groups as well, called GCGs, Global Curation Groups. And these are very much an opportunity to share music, share expertise, share music that's happening. And I'll give a way that could work. So if I was an editor and if I was in one of these groups, I'm meeting with my colleagues globally based on a genre. And let's say I hear a track, a new release, and I think, you know what, I think this would really work in my colleague's playlist in Australia or in South Korea. The line of communication is there to share that information. First of all, share the track. We listen. We're led by our ears. We might be informed by data, but we're led by our ears. So we share the track. We're listening. We see any relevant data. If there is data, if there are new artists, there is no data, so it doesn't matter. And then the point here is that there's an opportunity for music to travel. And we've seen so many tracks, artists, genres travel through this system. It's a very efficient system we've got. The artist doesn't see it, or the representative from the artist team doesn't see it when they press send on that submission. But please know that it does go to the editorial team, and they are listening.
That's great. It's really good to know as well that new artists are considered as much as a repeat releasing artist, right? You mentioned even if there's no data, that doesn't affect where that song goes in the editorial flow. It's still listened to, and the judgment is made on the merit of the track alone. So it seems to me that the best thing an artist can do to get on an editorial playlist is just to write an absolute earworm of a song that impacts the listener, that is memorable, right? Because obviously, I mean, we all know this to be true. There are other songs out there, right? There are other songs that are in editorial consideration. And so if your song is memorable and it's going to impact a human, that's the best chance that you have for leaving your mark, getting in an editorial playlist, which is all driven by human decision. Is that all accurate, what I just said?
I think there's another element as well of don't look at Spotify in isolation. Our editors are listening to the track submitted through the system. They're reading the information submitted through the system, through the pitch form. But they also have the ear to the ground with music and culture, and they're going to shows, they're listening to radio, they're reading music press, they're keeping an eye on what's moving. They see what's happening with the zeitgeist, and it's not just a case of just looking through the pitch tool. It's good to be informed as well, and I think Spotify does reflect culture. I think if something's happening off Spotify, it can very much happen on Spotify. So my advice is always look at your broader plan. Obviously, Spotify is part of the plan, but no one service should be the marketing plan. Look at your broader plan of how you're going to get this track out and work it, and see our system of playlists broader than editorial. We have many personalized playlists, and personalized listening accounts for, I think it's around 33% of listens on the platform. Those playlists are hugely powerful. So again, I would, before someone drops the first single, we're talking about someone who's about to release the first track or first few tracks, spend some time reading through what we've put on Spotify for Artists. It's all there, loads of good tips on what to do. There's good rundowns of all the different tools and features and when to use them and how to use them. And I think I don't know if you're like this, but sometimes if you buy flat pack furniture, people don't want to read the instructions. You just want to build it because you're excited, right? You just like, I've got to work out, and I know what it's like. I'm a musician. In my former life, I was a full-time artist. I get it. You just want to get it out and be excited about it. It does help to have some planning and some structure around it, and read the instructions before you release it.
A lot of artists, they don't read the instructions. They are just looking at the numbers and feeling the gap. Maybe there's a little bit of panic. And honestly, I think they don't know what to do. So they run to services that will increase their numbers on Spotify, right? And you and I both know, and viewers of this channel have heard this word before, they'll pay for bots, which are basically fake streams, fake non-human listeners that will drive the number up on Spotify. What would you say to someone who has used bots or is planning to use bots to drive up their Spotify numbers? Obviously, there are already technologies in place to remove bots from the platform, but just from an artistic standpoint, why is that not a good idea in terms of marketing your music?
Well, first of all, I'll say don't do it. There are no shortcuts. We're laying out a suite of tools and features on Spotify for Artists for people to use that can help find an audience. It can help build a creative profile. It can help you find an audience, engage with that audience. The step-by-step guide is there for people to follow. I would highly discourage anyone from taking part in any form of artificial streaming. Now, artificial streaming is an industry-wide priority. I don't know how much you've covered this on the channel. I'm guessing you have. It's a huge priority globally now. It's something that's always been there. It's a form of fraud. It's artificial streaming. It's been around. It's bubbling up, and now it's a real industry-wide priority. And the industry, it does really feel like the industry is pulling together on this one. And there's more and more deterrents and initiatives coming into place around this. From Spotify's side, we strictly prohibit artificial streaming, including using any third-party service that promises streams or placements on any playlists in return for money. Those services violate our terms and conditions. And when we identify cases of artificial streaming, there are different actions that we can take. It could be the withholding of royalties, correction of streaming numbers. It could be ensuring that the song's popularity is accurately reflected in the charts. And this year, and this is something we announced at the end of last year, actually, but this year, we're going to begin charging labels and distributors per track when artificial streaming is detected on their content. Now, as I said, there's more and more deterrents, more and more initiatives coming in around artificial streaming. It's just not worth it. There's no shortcuts. We're really cracking down on this. We're seeing many of our industry partners cracking down on this as well. And if someone wants to be educated further on it, I would point them to, again, Spotify for Artists. We've got some good information on there that we're going to be building on over the coming months.
Absolutely. Yeah. Occasionally an artist will, come to the Indie Music Academy. I'll see their Spotify for Artists metrics, and it's actually incredible. Their chart, their follower chart, will just shoot up and then shoot back down, and they'll panic and maybe buy more fake followers or whatever it is. So shoot back up, and then Spotify is so good at removing those fake accounts, right? Because they're not actual users, right? You're a technology service that
Yeah.
wants to service real humans, and so like you take down the fake accounts. And so it even seems that whatever temporary benefit that they are thinking they might receive, it's just going to end up being a waste of time, money, or even, like you mentioned, put them in a worse situation because Spotify seems to correct the inaccurate data. Is that true?
Yeah, and I'd also add that we as a company have the right to remove any manipulated content, any songs, tracks with artificial streaming from the platform. And a distributor might take similar action. They might take the track down. They might suspend your account, depending on the distributor's policies. And we don't really want that, right? I don't want artists punished for doing something that they think is going to actually help them, or actually it's going to hinder them. So, yeah, I would say don't go near it. If you're looking to take on any marketing services, digital marketing agencies, do some research, ask questions about their methods of promotion, read reviews, check out what other artists have said about them. It's really important you know what you're getting into when you're paying for a service. Just like anything in life, if you're going to pay for something, you should know what you're paying for.
Yeah, and pay for something good.
Yeah, ideally pay for something good that you think there's value in. And with this, we've touched on, I think, a theme in this conversation has been artists being able to build careers at all different stages, at all different levels. And to build a career, it's about longevity, and it's not a flash in the pan situation. So there's no shortcuts.
So we talked a little bit about editorial playlists, but obviously the algorithm is a huge driver. As you said, I think 30% of all streams come from the personalized playlists that are part of Spotify's recommendation engine. Can you tell us a little bit about that engine, how it works, the different categories of algorithmic playlists that an artist can get on, and also how to maximize the chances of benefiting from that feature?
Yeah, so personalized streams, super, super important. These can come from playlists, mixes, radio, and recommendations that are very much made for you as a listener. And they're essentially personalized to each individual Spotify listener based on taste profile and a ton of different signals that include time of day, genre, and the listening habits of fans with similar taste. So in terms of what those playlists are in the playlist setting, think about Discover Weekly, Release Radar, Blend, could be Daylist, playlists such as Beast Mode, songs to sing in the shower, smooth jazz. Let's take smooth jazz as an example. I might follow that playlist. You might follow the same playlist, but we've got a slightly different view and listening experience because of our individual tastes. This bucket of personalized streams we're talking about, it's super powerful. It accounts for 1/3 of new artist discoveries on Spotify. And in terms of where the crossover is with editorial, which is super important, the personalized playlists still have editorial input. The bucket of tracks that you get served versus what I get served, they're taken from a broader pool of tracks that an editor has put together. And the 50-ish, for example, tracks that I receive and you receive will be different based on our individual tastes, as I mentioned. But the fact that the editor has put a broader list of tracks together really gives an opportunity for the best listener experience for us, and also for more artists to cut through. there's more potential for artists to be featured on one of these playlists. So they're super important, super powerful. Personalized streams account for, it's around 1/3 of new artist discoveries on Spotify. I'll give a more recent example of a personalized setting on Spotify, and that's AI DJ. AI DJ, which is now rolled out across multiple markets. It's an opportunity for a listener to get a really good personalized experience, and for the artist, it's a great opportunity for tracks to be served with context. So it's not just a rolling list of tracks on a playlist or through the radio feature. There's the AI DJ feature where the DJ is able to give that super important context on the song.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Bryan, obviously we're running out of time. Hopefully, we can do another interview for our viewers, our independent artists that use Spotify every single day to help spread the word of their music and to grow their career. So, thank you for your time. Are there any final last words that you can just give out of your expertise, out of your creative soul from artist to artist? What final thoughts do you want to leave with our viewers today?
I mean, I would say stay authentic, stay passionate, go to Spotify for artists, utilize the tools, the features, make them work for you and what you represent artistically, and go for it. Just run with it. Don't go down the bot lane. Stay legitimate. Read the guides, read the FAQs on Spotify for artists, and go to Loud and Clear. Loud and Clear, this annual economics report on streaming and Spotify, where Spotify fits into the wider streaming economy, how we can help artists at all careers. There's some really, really good bits of information on there, some good stats on there. If you go to that site and you walk away knowing a handful of things, or you only have like a few minutes, look at the 10 takeaways. The 10 takeaways are the 10 key things from the site that we want people to know. Really, really good. It's good narrative on there, and hopefully there's something on there for you.
Thanks so much, Bryan. Everyone watching, I'll leave the Loud and Clear link in the description below. Bryan, thank you so much for your time today. It was so informative. Once again, I hope to have you back on where we can talk more about how to grow on Spotify, how to just use the tools, the platform in the best way. And thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.